Hi guys, happy Friday vlog. It's been a little while since we've had a Friday vlog and this one I'm excited for. I think it's a good one to come back to Fridays with. So currently I am in Gili T, which is a tiny little island off the coast of a different island here in Indonesia. Now I've just been here for the last week getting my scuba diving certificate, which has been literally such a blast. But the week prior, I was back on that main island called Lombok, and I was there because I was doing a wellness retreat. I was there with PE Retreats. It was not sponsored. This is not gifted. This is not a brand collab. I paid my own money. I paid I paid the full price for the thing. I was not doing this in any way to do with social media or anything. I chose to do this and I'm so glad I did it. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I posted lots about it. A lot of people knew about PE Retreats well before even I knew about it or knew that I was even going to do one, let alone do a retreat with them. And when I started posting about it, not only were you guys sending me lots of messages and asking lots of questions, but you were also messaging the girls that were on the trip. So a bunch of you guys knew them in real life and you guys were messaging them saying, hey, did you realize that you're on the same wellness retreat as me? And we were there together. So you guys really knew about the retreat. You got to see a lot of behind the scenes. I vlogged the whole thing here on YouTube and over on TikTok. So if you haven't seen any of the content about the wellness retreat, then there's a lot there for you to go and look at and go and watch if you want to learn more or find out more. But I did get a lot of messages about it. And so I thought I would do a cute little sit down Q&A with you guys and we can actually talk about the wellness retreat. So I put a little question box up on my Instagram stories and a bunch of you guys sent through some questions. So I'm going to read through them very soon. But I'm just going to start with a bit of an overview, a bit of a background about the wellness retreat that I did and how it all played out, how everything went down. So like I said, it was with PE Retreats, and that stands for physical education, you would do PE class in school, because Loz, who is the owner and the operator, the runner of PE Retreats, she actually used to be a primary school PE teacher, which I thought was really cool. And I had no idea about any of this information until I was on the retreat with her and we were just talking and getting to know each other. So it's a very cool name, but it's called PE Retreats. You can find them over on Instagram, TikTok, all over the place. And it wasn't until I had actually left for my solo trip. So I'm currently traveling the world solo by myself. I think I'm on week 7 right now of what will be probably a 4-month solo trip, but it's a little bit open-ended, so I don't actually know when I'll be home, which is kind of fun. But yeah, it wasn't until I was in week 1 of my trip. So I'd already left and I was visiting my dad in the first week. He lives in far north Queensland, and I was visiting him and I was talking to a really good friend of mine, Danielle, and she was like, have you thought about a wellness retreat? And I was like, I think that could be really cool, but I don't know a lot about it, which in hindsight was probably a good thing, because talking to a lot of the other women who were on the retreat, they had done weeks or months even worth of research into different companies, different groups to do it with, where to do it, different itineraries as well. Whereas I kind of went in pretty blind into the whole wellness retreat world. I had never really thought about doing one. I had never researched one. And this was, I think, the 3rd one I found. So I literally typed it into Instagram and I was like, wellness retreat, and I'm going to be in Bali. I knew I was going to be in Bali after I visited my dad. So I just put in Bali, right? And I looked at a few of them and then I found PE Retreats. And PE Retreats stood out to me just because, well, their marketing was really, really good. And I'm a sucker for good marketing. If you can sell really well to me, you're probably going to win me over, right? And the 2 that I had looked at beforehand were yoga retreats and silent retreats. So they were really, really spiritual. They were very, very almost isolating, I would say, from the outset. I didn't do those retreats. I was just looking at them. I was downloading their little PDF guides and trying to read about them, but they looked quite isolating and a little bit scary, if I'll be honest with you. And then I landed on PE Retreats and it looked like a group of normal people. It looked like really regular people who were going on these retreats. Loz seemed really approachable and just a normal person who happened to run really cool retreats. And then that's when I was okay, I think I really like PE Retreats, but now I have to decide which retreat to go on because there's different types of them, right? And I ended up having a phone call session with Loz, who was the owner, and she kind of ran me through the different retreats and which ones she thought I would be best for. And the next one coming up, at the time that I had that call with Loz, the one that was coming up soonest was probably the one that was going to work for me in terms of itinerary and schedule wise the best. And that happened to be the one that I booked. So I ended up booking what is called a Breathe Lighter retreat. So it mixes both movement, exercise, workouts and things like that with the wellness side of things. So meditation, journaling, mindfulness and breath work. And it's kind of a 50% version of a wellness retreat, you know? So a lot of the wellness retreats that I looked at were like, you're going to be up at 4 a.m. Then we're going to do 2 hours of breath work. Then it's going to go into a workout session. Then we're going to do 7 hours of journaling. Then we're going to go into 9 hours of yoga. Like it was just full on. Whereas this one, I looked at the itinerary and we'd be up by 7, we'd do a workout, then we'd go grab some breakfast. And then there would maybe be a journaling and a mindfulness session. And then we'd maybe meet later on for dinner. And that would be the itinerary for the day. Like it seemed very like 50% of what the other ones were, which to me was really good because I didn't want to just jump straight into this full on like 7-day yoga retreat when I had no experience with that kind of stuff. So when I was talking to Loz and I was telling her kind of my situation and what I was doing, and she had already booked in all of the spots for my retreat except for one. There was one more spot left over, and that's the one that I ended up booking. So that's a little bit about how I found PE retreats and kind of like what my experience was leading up to it. But it was vastly different to a lot of the other women who were on the retreat. A lot of them had this retreat specifically booked for months and months in advance, and they had been looking at and researching and watching PE retreats sometimes for years in advance into leading up to this. So it was a little bit of a different experience because I didn't really have the knowledge base about PE retreats and about laws that all of the other women had or seemed to have. But I don't think that affected my experience at all. I actually think I benefited from, just me personally benefited from going into it with like almost zero expectations and like zero knowledge about what could happen or would happen or should happen. And I think I really am grateful for that fact. Okay, so a little bit of a breakdown of the retreat. We met on the first day, or there was kind of like a pre-day. Most of the people were arriving on the Thursday, and the retreat technically started as of the Friday. But we got together on the Thursday morning with about 70% of the women who were on the retreat. I think about like 9 or 10 of them had arrived by that point, including myself. And we met up for a Pilates session in the morning and some breakfast. And then I think we met up again that night when the rest of the women had arrived. Then we jumped straight into Friday, which was again a yoga session in the morning, which I really, really enjoyed. And then we had breakfast. And then that night we had what was called like the welcome party or the launch party. By this point, I had spent nearly 2 days with most of the women. And so we were like really quickly trying to get to know each other and learn each other and remember each other's names, but learn all sorts of things about each other because we knew that it was going to be a little bit of an intense week together. And we knew that we were going to have to open up and be quite vulnerable and like talk about some stuff. And essentially all of us were strangers. None of us knew each other. We all traveled there solo. And I'm really grateful for that fact because I think it would have been hard to open up to like people if I knew that they knew each other and they had previous experiences with each other or previous like perceptions of each other, because I would feel like almost like an outsider coming in. But with my group in particular, every single one of us were traveling there solo and didn't know anyone, which was really, really special. And I think it added to the fact, like it added to our ability to connect and bond with each other, because by the end of the retreat, I feel like these women, I've known them for months, like genuinely months, and we only spent 6 days together. So that was kind of like the start of it. And then on the second day, the technical second day, but like third day I had met them, was the breath workshop. So this was the most like intense day out of the entire retreat. And we were all very aware of that as well. There was actually like quite a bit of anxiety going into it. We had coaches for our movement and workout sessions. Her name was Sophie. She was an absolute legend. And then we had a mindfulness and breathwork coach. Her name was Caitlin. And they had given us some pointers and like given us a little bit of an idea of what to expect, but they didn't want us to go into it with too much knowledge about it because they needed us to be really open and open-minded and kind of vulnerable for this session. It lasted about 3 hours and it was really, really intense. I'll be so honest with you. Physically, emotionally, mentally, it was really intense. There was a lot of tears, a lot of crying. There was a lot of trauma that was released. It definitely helped bond all of us because we were very vulnerable with what we shared. Like, to remind you, we had met these women, we had met each other like 48 hours to like 70 hours earlier, right? And we were telling them some of our like deepest traumas. But in saying all of that, we were supported through it so well. So we had, not only did we have Caitlin who was like guiding us and leading us through the breath work, but we also had Steph who was the yoga and Pilates instructor. We had Loz there. We also had Sophie who was the workout trainer there as well. And we just had each other and we were all really, really supportive in that moment. So although the first like 3 days were full on and intense and very vulnerable and quite scary at some points, from that point point on, the retreat just got better and better and better. So we did mindfulness, journaling, we did breath work, we did meditations, all sorts of things like that every single day. We did a workout, often 2, sometimes 3 workouts a day. And we also had downtime and like social time together. And that's how the rest of the retreat kind of carried on. So overall, my like experience was incredibly positive. I don't really have, and I hate saying this, but I don't really have any constructive feedback to like give back to the retreat. If I could have my time over again, I wouldn't change a single thing. I wouldn't change the order that everything was laid out in. I wouldn't change the people that were there. I wouldn't change the coaches that we had. Everything that was done and that we had to get like in that retreat felt so purposefully and like intentional, and it just made the experience, I don't know, it felt very supported. I didn't feel unsure or confused or anything like that at any point. I just felt very like supported all the way through this like quite intense experience. So that's like my overall with the retreat and how it kind of played out. Let's answer some of your questions that you had about it. Okay, so the first question was one that I got the most, which was how much was it? So this question says, how much was it and did it include food and all activities? So let's go through it, right? Pretty clear cut pricing when it comes to PE retreats. With my specific retreat, it was 6 days long in Lombok. So that meant for most of the women, it was a flight from Australia to Bali and then a flight from Bali to Lombok, right? For me, because I was already in Bali at the time, it was a little bit of a crazy mishap trying to get there. So if you want to hear about that, you can go back and watch the vlogs because I vlogged that whole situation. But the flights and all of those travel expenses are not included in the cost of this. You have to get your own way there and pay for it as well. Then once you've like booked in for the retreat and you've gotten there were 2 options. You could share a room, so have a twin share room, and that reduced the cost to, I believe it is $2,999. So 3,000 Australian dollars. And that would be for each person in the room, right? And then the other option was a private room. Now, because I booked mine so late, that was the only option left available for me. So I ended up booking the private room, which is $3,999. So $4,000. So if you wanted to share a room, which let me just put a disclaimer in here, every single person who shared a room or had a roommate had a really wonderful experience. And also all of us who had a single room had a really nice experience too. If you're worried about sharing a room with someone and not getting along with your buddy, I really, really would encourage you to just like not stress about that, because every single person that's going on a retreat like this has a really good mindset going into it, and they probably share a lot of the same thoughts that you have about sharing a room. I know that previously on other PE retreats, there have actually been like better experiences from the people who shared rooms because they felt like they had like a built-in best friend, or they had like an immediate best friend, especially if they were going into it solo. So do with that what you will. Me and the 3 other women who had solo rooms had no regrets about it. I in fact enjoyed having the space and the time because I could get work done and things like that. All of the women who shared a room with a buddy also were immediately like best friends with them, and they really, really clicked. So I don't think that will change your experience too much, but really like choose carefully based on you and your preferences and what you want out of it. So essentially $3,000 for a twin share or $4,000 for your own room, right? Now, it does not include all of the food, but it does include all of the activities. So almost every single day we would have, like I said before, a workout of some sort, a mindfulness, a journaling, meditation, or breathwork session like that. So like a wellness session involved in it, plus an activity on top of that. Sometimes it was surf lessons, sometimes it was a game of paddle, other times it was Pilates classes, other ones were like cooking classes. There was a lot of really fun stuff that we did, and they mixed it up, which was really like nice. It kept the days moving nice and busy, but not too overwhelmed. And because you're staying at the resort where the retreat is hosted, you get breakfast included. So not all of your food and meals are included, but you do get breakfast. I think every single day we had breakfast at the retreat. And if we had an early morning or we were heading out for an activity, the resort would actually pack up our breakfast for us into little Tupperware containers so we could take it with us. So overall, the cost wise, I don't have a lot to compare it to. I'll be honest. For what I got, I would have paid the $4,000, if not more. I know it's easy for me to say because I've been through it and I've like seen the worth in it and I've seen the value that I got out of it. So I have this like advantage of hindsight to be like, yeah, I think it is worth this amount of money. I paid the $4,000 and I genuinely think it was worth that. And I would pay more next time if the next one costed more. I think another thing to remember is the location where it's being held. We're in Lombok, so we're in a semi-remote spot in Indonesia. Now, if you're coming from Australia, especially, you're not looking at like an over overly large amount of expenditures or like costs and things like that outside of the retreat, right? It's a relatively cheap country. Food, transport, activities, all of that kind of stuff is like in general quite cheap. So I think if the cost of the retreat was at like the top end of your budget, I don't think that you would have to budget that much more for all of the other little bits that you need to pay for to have a good experience, if you get what I mean. So let's just recap. The travel costs to get to the location, you need to cover all of those associated travel costs. The cost of the retreat covers all of your coaches, your accommodation, all of the activities, and your breakfast as well. And then the extra costs on top of it were like some of the dinners out, some of the transports like around different places if you wanted to go shopping, if you wanted spending money, that kind of stuff, which was very, very minimal, like outlying. Okay, next question was, would you say it's good value for money? I'm on the edge about signing up. Well, I feel like I just answered that question. I think it is worth it. I think if you have been looking at it and you are like not sure if this is, if you should do it, or you don't, like you've been looking at it for a really long time and you definitely think PE retreats is the one to go for, like you've looked at other ones and this is the one you keep coming back for, I would say do it. If you've gotten yourself to that point and it's just like the cost that's like making you waver, I would say it is worth it. If you're going to do that much research and really look into it and really invest in this kind of activity, PE retreats, I think is the one to invest with. I really, really enjoyed my experience and I genuinely think it is worth the money that it costs. Okay, next one is, I'm a bigger girl. I'm scared to go alone. How did you find it being a solo traveler? Okay, multiple questions in there, but let's address it. When I was telling you about which retreats I was going to pick, there is multiple different types of retreats, and one of them is called a move retreat, and that one is really heavily focused on exercise, working out, movement classes, all of that kind of stuff, right? When I looked at it, I can confidently say that wouldn't have been the retreat for me. I wouldn't have been at a physical like capability level to get the most out of that retreat. Okay, so if you're looking at these and you're not really sure, I would absolutely encourage you to give it a go if you think that you can handle it. But I knew my limitations and that retreat wasn't going to be the one for me. In saying that, there was a lot of workouts, there was a lot of activities and movement and exercise classes and things like that, and all of them were catered to the level that the group was at. There was a lot of girls who were massive gym junkies and they were pushing themselves every single session and they had the capabilities and the allowance to do that. And then there was groups like me where I feel like I'm on the lower end of that. I'm definitely new back to exercise. I don't have the best fitness. I'm not as strong. And I felt like I could keep up in every single one of the classes. I actively enjoyed it and I felt like it pushed me, but not too far. So I think if you're worried about like your physical ability to like keep up with that kind of stuff, I would think twice about doing the move retreat just from what I've seen and what I know about it. But this retreat I think was brilliant and it catered to every single one of us who had vastly different levels of like experience. Then the other question is, how did you find it being a solo traveler? Well, like I said at the start, I was incredibly lucky. I feel very, very lucky that every single one of the women who came to my retreat specifically were also there solo. Okay. And I think that's a really special experience as well, because it means that every single one that you meet, that you're trying to build a connection with, that you're trying to be open and vulnerable with, you have something that you can kind of connect on and you can say, hey, like you're just as terrified as I am. I'm here alone. We've traveled here by ourselves. We don't know anyone. We're scared about what we're doing. We're nervous and we're anxious, but at least we can share that experience together, you know? So if you're worried about that, I would say my advice to you is do it scared anyway. It's worth it. It's so worth it. And I think those who came, I mean, every single one came solo, but those of us who came and traveled solo maybe potentially got more out of it because we were able to completely leave every, idea and thought that we had about ourselves behind and just be truly vulnerable and present and ourselves there. And the other thing is Loz is very, very good at what she does. She's very, very clever. And when she, puts people in retreats and like matches people for roommates and all of that kind of stuff, she's very intentional about that as well. So I think if you're worried about traveling solo there, that should be the least of your worries. I think it's really, really common for these kind of retreats and you're definitely going to find people that you like mesh and gel with on that. But also I would put a little bit of faith in Loz and the team who are putting these retreats together because they're very, very intentional about who they pair with who and why they do that. And I think she deserves a lot of like credit and trust to be placed into her for that. So I don't think you should be worried about traveling solo at all. Okay, this one is actually from Lou, who was one of the girls who came on the retreat with me. And she just says, can we go back? And honestly, yes. The bond that our group had, Loz and the other coaches did mention, was one of the tightest ones that they'd seen. I think because we were all there solo, it really did allow for that. But also I think I was just incredibly lucky to meet like such incredibly diverse women who were all really there with like the right mindset. They were all really there for the right reasons to do the work, and we wanted to do the work together. You know, we could see the benefit in leaning on each other and supporting each other, and how we were all as a group going to get more out of that together. So we have already organized like reunions. We still have a group chat with everyone where we like do catch ups. I literally sent them a post like the other day being like, guys, I just graduated from my scuba diving course, and everyone was congratulating me. Like, it does really feel like we've quite bonded, and I'm really, really, really grateful for every single one of the women that I met. Okay, there's more questions like, was it expensive? What's the cost breakdown? All of that kind of stuff. Then there's this question, it says, how much time did they let you use technology each day? Now, I'm really glad someone asked this question, because I think it is a big component of what people think a wellness retreat is about. They think it's like, you know, you're going to have to be silent for an entire week, and you've got to journal for 11 hours a day, and you've got to not be on your phone, and you've got to like live in the forest. And my experience really wasn't like that. We were living in a luxury resort. The girls were drinking cocktails every single day. We were eating 5-star food. Like, it was quite a luxurious experience, I'll be so honest with you. And there wasn't any restrictions on things like technology, social media use, how much free time we had, who we were allowed to spend that time with, anything like that. It really, that's what I mean when I say it was like a 50% wellness retreat, because like the really strict, intense kind of side of wellness retreats wasn't a part of this one. I got everything and more out of the wellness component of it that I wanted, just without like the strict kind of intense vibe that comes with a lot of them. So obviously, you guys know I was still working while doing this retreat. I had plenty of time, plenty of downtime to get my work done. I was allowed to be filming as much as I could. I could be on my phone if I wanted to. A lot of us, like after workouts or wellness sessions, sometimes we just wanted to go back to our room and like just like doom scroll for half an hour before we came and hang out by the pool with everyone. And that was completely okay. So yeah, I think when you think about wellness retreats, or at least for me, when I was thinking about a wellness retreat, this wasn't what I was expecting, but it was what I was wanting. I didn't want that really intense kind of structured experience. I wanted something like quite fluid and open and like relaxed. Okay, the next question is, how much downtime did you get every single day? And the answer to that is plenty. Well, except for one day. We would, like I said before, we would usually start the morning quite early, get a workout in or a mindfulness journaling session or something like that. Then we'd probably have an activity some point like mid-morning or early afternoon. And the rest of the day was essentially our own. Me and the other women spent most of the day together because we wanted to, because that's what we were there for, and we wanted to experience and do that. But we would also break off into different groups. Some of us would go shopping for an afternoon. Like myself, I had to go and do work for a couple hours. That was completely fine and normal. I had plenty of time to do that. Some people wanted to go on walks or hikes. Some people would sit by the pool for the afternoon. Some were reading. Some were scrolling on their phone. Like, there was a lot of downtime each day, enough that you felt like you could recharge and get ready for the next day. But it certainly wasn't like we were sitting around twiddling our thumbs. There was multiple activities to do each day. We were always busy. If you wanted to like do extra journaling, there was time and allocation for that. If you wanted to do more workouts, there was time and allocation for that as well. So there was plenty of, this is what I mean when I say it felt very intentional. Like, it felt like when I physically and mentally needed downtime, that was allotted in the schedule for that day. And then when I was physically recharged and mentally ready to go, there was an activity ready and waiting for us to tackle. Like, it felt very intentional about the way that it was set out and planned. Okay, and the last question was, what was the thing I got the most out of the retreat? And this is a really hard one to answer because there was a lot that I got out of it. And I'm going to touch on a few different things. I think as a solo traveler, I got a little bit of reprieve from the loneliness of solo traveling. Now, I'll be so real with you. I have not been alone while solo traveling yet. And everyone who's done it will agree with me. Solo traveling is not really solo traveling. You meet people so much. I've met people online. I've met people in person. Like, I've barely been solo this whole time. But there are components of solo travel where you do feel like the loneliness of it. And I guess when I was, heading to this retreat, I was a bit nervous about going from being by myself a lot of the time to being with a large group of women all the time. And I actually found it really good. I found it like a really good kind of like speed bump to like break up my trip a little bit. And it gave me like friendship. It gave me me companionship. It gave me some people to like talk to and spend time with, spend some downtime with as well. So that was one thing I really liked. The other thing I got out of it, I think, was a lot of like self-reflection. I think there was so much emphasis on doing the work, and there was a lot of time allowed for you to actually do it. I think I went into this solo trip kind of like hoping all of the benefits of solo travel would just kind of smack me in the face and I wouldn't have to work for them. But as this trip has gone on, I've really realized like if I want to get a lot out of it, I need to do the work to do that. I need to learn to meditate. I need to learn breath work. I need to journal better. I need to reach out and make connections with people more. And this allowed me to really kind of like put that in fast forward. It gave me a chance to be like, right, this is the spot, this is the space, these are the people, and here are the coaches who are going to teach you how to do this. And so I felt like I got a lot of skills and practice at self-reflection and like introspection and growth and things like that. But it also gave me the space to do that. I needed Caitlin, who was the mindfulness coach, to walk me through the journaling. I needed Sophie, who was the workout coach, to take me through these different strength activities. I needed the women there to be there to talk to and be vulnerable with and open up to, you know. I think just overall, I spent a lot of time looking and reflecting back on myself in a safe space, and a lot of the work and growth and self-discipline and mental growth I wanted from this trip has come from that 6 days with the women. And then lastly, I think the biggest thing, like when I talk about all of that self-reflection and that internalization, what I was actually working on was like loving myself a little bit more. I went into the retreat with the goal of I want to come out of this with greater peace. I want to understand myself a little bit more, and I want to have a clearer mindset of like what my plan in life is. I wanted guidance. I wanted a plan. And I left with not that, but I left with something better. I left with a lot more like self-love, so much more grace and patience and kindness for myself and for the journey that I've been on. I left with a sense of inner like calmness and peace that I don't need to have a plan anymore. I don't need to have my life figured out. I don't need to have a goal and a roadmap. I can trust in myself that I'm going to be okay no matter what I'm doing. And I think if you've been following my YouTube vlogs and my social media of this journey so far, I think you will be able to really distinctly see the difference between me in the first couple weeks of my solo trip and me now. One of the really obvious things to me was at the start of this trip, I was really indecisive about a lot of things. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know when to go there. I didn't know how to go there. And I got overwhelmed and I couldn't make a decision because I thought I was going to make the wrong decision. Coming out of the retreat, the work that I did, the time I had to reflect, I learned that I'm okay and that I don't have to have every single answer. I'm going to be able to just trust in myself because I've done the work, that whatever decision I do choose to make is the right one, and it's going to be the right one. So I don't need to overthink it. I don't need to question it. I can just trust in me. And that was something that I walked away with being so grateful for, because the rest of this trip could have been really anxiety inducing. It could have like almost, sent me backwards in terms of my independence and my self-growth. But having done that retreat and done that work, I'm really, really glad that I did it when I did, because it gave me the opportunity to see, hey, there's an area in your life where you're unkind to yourself. It's not helpful. It's not building confidence. It's not taking you or leading you into the version of yourself that you want, that you're aiming for. So we need to change that. We need to fix that. And this gave me the space and the encouragement and support to do that kind of work. So yeah, there was lots of things that I got out of this retreat, but they were definitely my top ones. Would I ever do another one again? My answer is 1,000% yes. I would love to do another one again. I would like to push myself further and do one of the retreats that's called Breathe Deeper. So we did Breathe Lighter, which was like the lighter version, the 50% version. And then there's a Breathe Deeper one. And eventually, maybe one day, I would love to do the Move one as well. I think that another PE retreat is 1,000% in the horizon for me. I don't know when, but I can definitely see myself doing another one in the next 12 months or so. And yeah, I think it was out of my comfort zone. It was a little bit left field for me, something really different, something that I don't think I would usually go for, but I am incredibly proud of myself for doing it. And I'm very, very grateful for those who put in the work and the time and energy into me on that retreat, because I'm walking away a greater version of myself and I'm really, really happy about it. But yeah, if you have any other questions about the retreats, the retreat I was on, my experience with retreats, or anything else like that you think I can help you with, you can put them in the comment section down below. You can always DM me. You guys know this. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You can send me messages on everything and I'll try try to get to all of them as well. But if you're thinking about doing a retreat, I would say do it. If you're thinking about joining a PE retreat in particular, I would say absolutely do it. It was an incredible experience and I'm a better version of myself and I like myself a lot more than I did before I did the retreat. So yeah, I hope that answers all your questions, guys. I love you. Thank you for watching. There's going to be another Friday vlog next week, which I'm really excited for. I think it will be a mukbang one. So sit down and come chat and eat with me. It's going to be really fun. And until then, I will see you on Sunday night for another vlog of my week. Bye.